Hello, this is Chris Savine of Chris Savine Photography, and today I would like to show you my favorite way on how to sharpen photos in Photoshop. Now, it's not the traditional way that some people do with high pass or the Sharpen photo filters that are in Photoshop, but to me, it's my favorite way. Everybody has a different way of doing things. No way is better than the others. And everything is subjective to the artist's own eyes. So this is how I do it. So what we need to do is we need to make a copy of all the layers that I have already visible. And to do that, you just do Command Alt Shift E on a Mac. I think it's Control Alt Shift E on Windows. I don't have a Windows computer, but so this is going to make a stamped layer of everything visible right now, a snapshot. Okay, and so now that we have a copy of all our layers, we need to make another one. So to do that, you just press Command J or Control J on Windows, and it makes another copy, as you can see here, right down here. So what we want to do is we want to turn off the visibility of this top layer and rename this Sharpen. Okay, and then go to this next layer and rename this Blur. Now, while we're on this layer, we're going to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'd bring it down and then bring it back up until it just starts to blur out and it doesn't, all the definition starts going away. Now, I have already done this once, and I prefer about 5 right there. And you can see if you get up close that all the definition's pretty much gone. So we'll hit OK. Let that process. And go back to full view. This is a large file because it's a panorama, like 156.3 megabytes. You got your blur, and we'll go up to the Sharpen layer, make that visible, and then we'll go to Image, Apply Image, and from here we'll take it from, we'll go to the blur layer. Oftentimes it'll go to the merged layer, but what we do here is we'll take it, we'll go to the blur layer, which is this layer here. That's why we named it blur, so you can know the differences in the layers that you're wanting to apply the image to. And then you want to change this to subtract. Oftentimes when you first bring this up, I've already done this once, it'll come up to multiply, and it'll look like this, all nice and dark, which kind of looks nice, but it's not what we're going for. So we'll go to subtract, and it'll bring it up, and it'll kind of look like it looks like a high pass filter. And then we'll just hit OK. So that's the blending mode subtract. Let it do it. It's processing. And now that's the blending for subtract is from Sharpen to blur. So it's subtracting all the blur part of it and leaving just the edges. And if you look close, you can see all the lines and stuff in the photo. Now, if you change this now to linear light, it'll go back to looking like what we had before. but this is not where we stop at. What we do now is we go to Image and Adjustments and go to Brightness and Contrast. And because of how we set this up, it's only going to affect the edges of our photo. And so when you bring up the contrast, this is where the sharpening happens. And if you watch right in here, you'll see you just bring it all the way up and it sharpens it really nice. Watch. See that? See how nice and sharp it looks in here? We can get closer. You can see. And if you will hit OK. Now, once you hit OK, obviously that's it's going to make it permanent. But permanent is while you're still only after you leave the program. Now, if you go here and you can always go back to the previous one. This is your history, and you can see how it went back to being blurry. But if you go back to this, and it's back to being sharp again. And if you don't think it's sharp enough, you can always go back to Image, Adjustments, and do it again. It'll bring box up, and if you want to sharpen it even more, you can do it. Look at that. Now, like I said, everybody's vision of their art is subjective to them. So whether you like it this sharp, you want it even more sharp, or you don't want it that sharp, that's totally up to you. Me, I don't want it that sharp. I like it like this. So I'm going to leave it like this, and I'm going to show you another photo. So here's a photo that I did at a concert of some friends of mine, and it was handheld photos. I didn't have a tripod, and I don't remember if I had my image stabilization on at the time, but it's rather a blurry photo. So if we do the same thing as we did before, in this case I don't have a lot of adjustments, so all I have to do is create a couple of copies. So Command J twice, Command J, Command J. That makes 2 copies. Turn the top one off, go to the bottom one, or you can go to the top one and rename this Sharpen. Hit enter. Go to the second one, name this Blur. And so from here we're on this blur layer. Do what it says. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Bring this up. Now you're thinking probably, why do you want to blur it even more? But there's a reason for that. So I'm going to leave it on 5 and hit OK. This one processes faster because it's not a big pano. Now we go to Sharpen, the Sharpen layer, turn it on, go to Image, Apply Image, and not merged, we want to go to the Blur layer. And then we want to make sure that the blending mode is on Subtract. So you can see it looks like a high pass filter, and maybe it is like a high pass filter. I'm not an expert at Photoshop. I just have been working with it, and this is my favorite way of doing the photo sharpening, like I said. So Now you change it again to linear light. It'll look like a regular photo again without having anything done to it. Go up to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, and we just crank up the contrast, and it just affects the sharpness. Now, it still looks, especially in his face and stuff, in his face, it still looks a little blurry. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to do it again. Image, Adjustment, Brightness and Contrast. And I would suggest that if you want to do it a second time like I'm doing it here, that you would just bring it up slowly, maybe up to 50%, something like that, and see how you look, how it looks to you. Maybe even bring the zoom in, see how it looks. Maybe bring it up even more. You also have to remember, ask yourself, what are you doing with this photo? Are you going to print it? You're just going to put it on the web. And that looks good. Let's see what one more does. So I'm going to hit OK, let that process. Go up to Image, Adjustments, and you can keep doing this all you want until it looks the way you want it, or it looks really bad. So, okay, so there's clear. Let's bring it down a little bit. 60. 60 looks pretty good. Let's see what 70 looks like. I didn't like 100, so 100's there. Bring it down to 80. And then if I'm looking mainly at his face, both the faces, and that looks pretty good. And that is in my opinion, a savable photo. So I brought it up essentially 280% or points, or I raised it 280. Hit OK. And like I said, this is destructive. Once you leave the Photoshop app, then this is the way it is. Now you can always redo it. You know how this process works, and there you have it. This is my favorite way of sharpening a photo. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe, hit that bell button. I don't do a lot of photo tutorials, so tell your friends. You can share it, and enjoy. Have a good day. Bye.